Welcome to Grace Fellowship Baptist Church Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. We are in the book of First Chronicles. We're in chapter 23, and I'm going to try to cover 4 chapters tonight because they're all related together, but there's a lot of reading involved. There's fortunately not a lot of interpretation. Starting in verse 1. When David was old and full of years, he made his son Solomon king over Israel. Pause there just a moment. That sums up about 4 chapters at the beginning of 1 Kings. And that's the only part in here that has any parallel in Samuel or Kings. The next 4 chapters repeat some of the same information that was earlier in list of people who were Levites or who were priests, but this time, instead of just telling who they were related to and their lineage, it tells what their job function is. So the rest of this is new material that's nowhere else in Scripture, and it's basically here so that people will understand once the temple is built, and the chroniclers want the temple built. It's part of their vision. And they're writing this so that people will know what should be done and how they should do when the temple is built, and they can begin to worship Yahweh correctly again. And so they're recording who should be doing what, as told in the record that they have from King David, from King Solomon, and that time frame, and therefore who should be doing it now. Verse 2. He also gathered together all the leaders of Israel, as well as the priests and Levites. The Levites 30 years old or more were counted, and the total number of men was 38,000. David said, of these, 24,000 are to supervise the work of the temple of the Lord, and 6,000 are to be officials and judges. 4,000 are to be gatekeepers, and 4,000 are to praise the Lord with musical instruments I have provided for the purpose. David divided the Levites into groups according to the sons of Levi: Gershom, Kohath, and Merari. Belonging to the Gershonites, Laden and Shimei. The sons of Laden, Jehiel the first, Jatham, and Joel, 3 in all. The sons of Shimei, Sheomoth, Haziel, and Haran, 3 in all. These are the heads of the families of Laden. Of the sons of Shimei, Jahath, Zizi, Jeus, and Bariah. These are the sons of Shimei, 4 in all. Jahath was the first and Zizi the second, but Jeus and Bariah did not have many sons, so they were counted as one family with one assignment. The sons of Kohath, Aram, Izhar, Hebron, and Uzziel, 4 in all. The sons of Amram, Aaron and Moses. Aaron was set apart, he and his descendants forever, to consecrate the most holy things, to offer sacrifices before the Lord, to minister before him, and to pronounce blessings in his name forever. The sons of Moses, the man of God, were counted as part of the tribe of Levi. The sons of Moses, Gershom and Eleazar. The descendants of Gershom, Shubiel was the first. The descendants of Eleazar, Rehabiah was the first. Eleazar had no other sons, but the sons of Rehabiah were very numerous. The sons of Izhar, Shelomith was the first. The sons of Hebron, Jeriah the first, Amariah the second, Jehaziel the third, Jechamiam the fourth, the sons of Uzziel, Micah the first, and Ishiah the second. The sons of Merari, Mali and Mushi. The sons of Mali, Eleazar and Kish. Eleazar died without having sons. He only had daughters. Their cousins, the sons of Kish, married them. The sons of Mushi, Mali, Eder, and Jeremoth, 3 in all. These were the descendants of Levi by their families, the heads of families as they were registered under their names and counted individually, that is, the workers 20 years old or more who served in the temple of the Lord. For David had said, since the Lord, the God of Israel, has granted rest to his people and has come to dwell in Jerusalem forever, the Levites no longer need to carry the tabernacle or any of the articles used in its service. According to the last instruction of David, the Levites were counted from those 20 years old or more. The duty of the Levites was to help Aaron's descendants in the service of the temple of the Lord, to be in charge of the courtyards, the side rooms, the purification of all sacred things, and the performance of other duties at the house of God. They were in charge of the bread set out on the table, the flour for the grain offerings, the unleavened wafers, the baking and mixing, and all measurements of quantity and size. They were also to stand every morning to thank and praise the Lord. They were to do the same in the evening, and whenever burnt offerings were presented to the Lord on Sabbaths and at new moon festivals and at appointed feasts. They were to serve before the Lord regularly at the proper number and in the way prescribed for them. And so the Levites carried out their responsibilities for the tent of meeting, for the holy place, and under their brothers, the descendants of Aaron, for the service of the temple of the Lord. So what David ordered them to do is, since they were no longer carrying the tabernacle around, taking it down, setting it up, making sure everything was right and carried correctly, they were to do similar work for the temple, except the temple doesn't move, so it doesn't have to be taken down and put back together. They were to keep up with the activities that the temple needed, that were some of them the same as the tabernacle, some of them different, such as it became a storehouse for the goods that were to be brought into the Levites and priests. And so they were in charge of the storehouse there. They were also in charge of doing things like bringing the water into the temple, bringing the wood into the temple, keeping the fire burning, keeping, order in the temple itself, making sure that, the showbread was made and out and displayed, and that all the different kinds of offerings there was available for the people to acquire there at the temple. So if they needed a grain offering, there was grain. If they needed an unleavened bread offering, there was unleavened bread, etc., etc., etc. And so they were to do the job that it took to prepare for the people to worship God at the temple. They were also to cook the sacrifices. We will find out later. There's a lot that they could do to help the priest. The priest had specific duties they could not offload to the Levites, but everything else they could have the Levites help them do it. Chapter 24. These were the divisions of the sons of Aaron. The sons of Aaron were Nadab, Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. But Nadab and Abihu died before their father did, and they had no sons. So Eleazar and Ithamar served as the priest. With the help of Zodak, a descendant of Eleazar, and Ahimelech, a descendant of Ithamar, David separated them in divisions for their appointed order of ministering. A larger number of leaders was found among Eleazar's descendants than among Ithamar's, and they were divided accordingly: 16 heads of families from Eleazar's descendants and 8 heads of families from Ithamar's descendants. They divided them impartially by drawing lots, for there were officials of the sanctuary and officials of God among the descendants of both Eleazar and Ithamar. The scribe Shemaiah, son of Nathaniel, a Levite, recorded their names in the presence of the king and of the officials: Zodok the priest, Ahimelech, son of Abithiar, and the heads of the families of the priests and of the Levites, one family being taken from Eleazar and one from Ithamar. The first lot fell to Jehoiarib, the second to Jedidiah, the third to Harim, the fourth to Seorim, the fifth to Malchijah, the sixth to Mijamin, the seventh to Hakaz, the eighth to Abijah, the ninth to Jehu, the 10th to Shechaniah, the 7th to Eliashib, the 12th to Jachim, the 13th to Hutha, the 14th to the Jeshua, the 15th to Bilgah, the 16th to Immer, the 17th to Hazir, the 18th to Hepizez, the 19th to Pethahiah, the 20th to Jehezekiel, the 21st to Jachin, the 22nd to Gamel, the 23rd to Deliah, and the 24th to Maaziah. This was their appointed order of ministering when they entered the temple of the Lord, according to the regulations prescribed for them by their forefather Aaron, as the Lord, the God of Israel, had commanded him. So this is the order of the priest as they were assigned under David by lot by the high priest at the time. They drew lots, Urim and Thummim, and we do not understand how that exactly worked, but they took it that random chance was controlled by God, and therefore if it was pulled by the appropriate priest using the appropriate device, it was ordained by God. And so this ordering was ordained by God. They put them into 24 groups, and they ministered for so long and before God, and then were changed out, and another group of priests came in and did their functions. And so there was continual rotation. And this is the heads of the families in David's day. And the chroniclers are recording this because people have kept up with who they were related to. And so, just to pick a name at last, the 22nd was Gamel. If you knew you were descended from Gamel, you knew you were the 22nd group in line to be priest in the temple. And so you knew your time in the rotation. And, basically they served for 1/24th of a year, well, roughly half a month, a little more than 2 weeks. And then they went home and somebody else served. And they, of course, had to pass off to the next group coming in and receive from the group before them. And, there was overlap for a day at either end. And so, they served, and there was an order to doing it. And David helped set that up and make sure it was running correctly. And Solomon continued it. And this is being recorded here, so when they get the temple back up and running, everybody knows where their place is, and they have a job, and they know what it is. Verse 20, As for the rest of the descendants of Levi, from the sons of Amram, Shubiel, from the sons of Shubiel, Jehediah, from Rehabiah, from his sons, Isaiah was the first, from the Isharites, Shelomoth, from the sons of Shelomoth, Jahath, from the sons of Hebron, Jeriah the first, Amariah the second, Jehaziel the third, and Jechmeam the fourth, the sons of Uzziel, Micah, from the sons of Micah, Shemir, the brother of Micah, Isaiah, from the sons of Isaiah, Zechariah, the sons of Merari, Mali and Mushi, the sons of Jahaziah, Beno, the sons of Merari from Jahaziah, Beno, Shoham, Zachar, and Ibri. From Mali, Eleazar, who had no sons. From Kish, the sons of Kish, Jerahmeel, and the sons of Mushi, Mali, Eder, and Jeremoth. These were the Levites according to their families. They also cast lots, just as their brothers, the descendants of Aaron, did, in the presence of King David and of Zodek, Ahimelech, and the heads of the families of the priests and the Levites. The families of the oldest brother were treated the same as those of the youngest. Chapter 25, verse 1. David, together with the commanders of the army, set apart some of the sons of Asaph, Heman, Jeduthun, for the ministry of prophesying, accompanied by harps, lyres, and cymbals. Here's the list of the men who performed this service. From the sons of Asaph, Zakur, Joseph, Nathaniah, and Asariah. The sons of Asaph were under the supervisions of Asaph, who prophesied under the king's supervision. As for Jeduthun, from his sons, Gedaliah, Zeri, Jeshuiah, Shemiah, Hashabiah, and Methathiah, 6 in all, under the supervision of their father Jeduthun, who prophesied using the harp in thanking and praising the Lord. As for Heman, from his sons, Bechiah, Methaniah, Uzziel, Shubiel, Jeremoth, Hananiah, Elithiah, Gedaltai, and Romantai Ezer, Joshbekah Kasha, Malathi, Hothir, and Mahasioth. All these were the sons of Heman, the king's seer. They were given him through the promises of God to exalt him. God gave Heman 14 sons and 3 daughters. All these men were under the supervision of their fathers for the music of the temple of the Lord, with cymbals, lyres, and harps for the ministry of the house of God. Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman were under the supervision of the king. Along with their relatives, all of them trained and skilled in music for the Lord, they numbered 288. Young and old alike, teacher as well as student, cast lots for their duties. The first lot, which was for Asaph, fell to Joseph, his sons and relatives, 12. The second to Gedaliah and his relatives and sons, 12. The third to Zachar, his sons and relatives, 12. The fourth to Isri, his sons and relatives, 12. The fifth to Nathaniah and his sons and relatives, 12. The sixth to Bechiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The seventh to Jeshariah, his sons and relatives, 12. The eighth to Jeshiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The ninth to Methaniah, his sons and relatives, 12. The 10th to Shimi, his sons and relatives, 12. The 11th to Azriel, his sons and relatives, 12. The 12th to Hashbiah, and his sons and relatives, 12. The 13th to Shubael, his sons and relatives, 12. The 14th to Mattathiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The 15th to Jeremoth, his sons and relatives, 12. The 16th to Hananiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The 17th to Joshabekashiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The 18th to Hananiah, his sons and relatives, 12. The 19th to Malathi, his sons and relatives, 12. The 20th to Eliphath, his sons and relatives, 12. The 21st to Hothir, his sons and relatives, 12. The 22nd to Gedalti, his sons and relatives, 12. The 23rd to Mahazioth, his sons and relatives, 12. The 24th to Ramamti Azer, his sons and relatives, 12. So there was 24 divisions of Levites that sang before the Lord and played musical instruments. They were the musicians of the temple, and they had a rotation just like the priest. And as far as we know, it was the same rotation, the same duties. So if you were in the first rank of priest, you served with the first rank of musicians. If you were in the 23rd, you served with the 23rd rank of musicians. And so they served with the same people in the temple year in, year out, rotation in, rotation out. Chapter 26. The divisions of the gatekeepers. From the Korahites, Meshemohiah. From the sons of Kor, one of the sons of Asaph, Meshelemiah, his sons, Zechariah the firstborn, Jedidiah the second, Zebediah the third, Jethniel the fourth, Elam the fifth, Jehohanan the sixth, Elihoaniah the seventh. Odom Edom also had sons, Shemaiah the first, Jehozabad the second, Joah the third, Sakar the fourth, Nathaniel the fifth, Amaliel the sixth, Issachar the seventh, Peuliathai the eighth, for God had blessed Odom Edom. His son Shemaiah also had sons who were leaders of their fathers' families because they were very capable men. The sons of Shemaiah, Othani, Raphael, Odom, and Elzabad. His relatives Elihu and Semachiah were also able men. All these were descendants of Obed-Edom, and they and their sons and their relatives were capable men with the strength to do the work. Descendants of Odom-Edom, 62 in all. Meshelemiah had sons and relatives who were able men, 18 in all. Hosa, the Merarite, had sons. Shimri the first, although he was not the firstborn, his father had appointed him the first. Hilkiah the second, Tabaliah the third, Zechariah the fourth. The sons and relatives of Hosea were 13 in all. These divisions of the gatekeepers, through their chief men, had duties for the ministering in the temple of the Lord, just as their relatives had. Lots were cast for each gate according to their families, young and old alike. For the lot of the east gate fell to Shelemiah. Then lots were cast for his son Zechariah, the wise counselor, and the lot for the north gate fell to him. The lot for the south gate fell to Odom-Edom, and the lot for the storehouse fell to his sons. The lots for the west gate and the Sheleketh gate on the upper road fell to Shuppim and Hosa. I keep pronouncing that H as an N. Guard was alongside of guard. There were 6 Levites a day on the east, 4 a day on the north, 4 a day on the south, and 2 at a time at the storehouse. As for the court to the west, there were 4 at the road and 2 at the court itself. These were the divisions of the gatekeepers who were descendants of Koha and Merari. Koha and Merari, yeah. So who guarded the temple and basically made sure people entered in an orderly manner, had everything it took when they got there. They weren't missing things. They didn't have things they shouldn't bring into the temple, etc., etc., and their positions and where they were. Again, this was preparing for building the second temple. So if you knew you were, a descendant of, say, Zechariah, you knew you were going to guard the north gate because that was his position, he and his descendants. Verse 20, their fellow Levites were in charge of the treasuries of the house of God and the treasuries of the dedicated things. The descendants of Laden, who were Gershonites, through Laden, and who were heads of their families belonging to Laden the Gershonite, were Jehaeli, the sons of Jehaeli, Zetham, and his brother Joel. They were in charge of the treasuries of the temple of the Lord. From the Amramites, the Izharites, Hebronites, Uzzielites, Shubael, the descendants of Gershom, son of Moses, was the officer in charge of the treasuries. His relatives through Eleazar, Rehabiah, his son, Jeshua, his son, Joram, his son, Zichri, his son, Shelomith, his son. Shelomith and his relatives were in charge of all the treasuries for the things dedicated by King David, by the heads of the families, who are commanders of thousands and the commanders of hundreds, and by the other army commanders. Some of the plunder taken in battle they dedicated for the repair of the temple of the Lord, and everything dedicated by Samuel the seer and by Saul the son of Kish, Abner son of Ner, and Joab son of Zeruiah, and all the other dedicated things were in the care of Shelomith and his relatives. From the Izharites, Kenani and his sons were assigned duties away from the temple as officials and judges over Israel. From the Hebronites, Hashabiah and his relatives, 1,700 able men, were responsible in Israel west of the Jordan for all the work of the Lord and for the king's service. As for the Hebronites, Jeriah was their chief according to the genealogical records of their families. In the 40th year of David's reign, a search was made in the records, and capable men among the Hebronites were found in Jazer in Gilead. Jeriah had 2,700 relatives who were able men and heads of families, and King David put them in charge of the Reubenites, the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh for everything pertaining to God and to the affairs of the king. And so we have here the records of how King David set up the administration for teaching God's law and teaching the king's law and enforcing it, being judges, being and where they served, also who was going to keep and the treasuries that were dedicated to God and dedicated to the upkeep of the temple. And so, who was going to be in charge of keeping all that wealth? Because it was actually a fairly large amount of stuff that David had, and guarding it was a non-trivial task until the temple got built. And then after the temple got built, most of that went into the temple, but somebody still had to keep up with it, even in the temple. And so, it had to be accounted for, it had to be in order, it had to be stored correctly. And if it needed to be cleaned or serviced, somebody had to do that. So David appointed people to make sure all that happened. And so we have the record, and the chroniclers recorded all these families, all in their positions and what they did. So when they went back to the land of Judah and they built the temple and Jerusalem got rebuilt and the land got repopulated, people would know who was to do what. Who was to keep the temple, who was to offer sacrifices, who was to, make showbread, who was to guard the treasures in the temple, who was to make sure that the storehouse in the temple and the grain that was stored there was stored correctly and given out to the correct people, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so it got recorded here, and you knew you had a hereditary job based on who your ancestors were. If you could trace your lineage back to, say, Hashabiah, they were responsible for the Hebronites, the Reubenites, the Gadites, half tribe of Manasseh, west of the Jordan. So that's where their administrative district was. And so, you knew you had a job, and you would be taught, and you would teach your children how to do it so they could do the job. And so they recorded it so everybody could be organized and they wouldn't have to go through this whole process again. And, if you knew your lineage, you knew where you would work. If you didn't know your lineage, well, then you wouldn't get a chance to do this kind of thing. You could farm the land. You could interact with everybody else. You could worship Yahweh, but you couldn't serve God in one of these specialized positions. Holy Father, thank you that you have in some way expanded beyond having people do based on their heredity, based on their lineage. But you can call people out by name, by individual, by their characteristics, by their abilities, and you will lead them to do the job you have them to do. Thank you for giving us that kind of freedom through your Son, Jesus. But you also have called us to worship you in spirit and truth, and to praise you and worship you, and continue that music ministry that you started at the tabernacle, continued at the temple, and Christianity is expanded on that. And all who are willing, who are able, who have musical ability are called to praise you and thank you and declare your word through music. Lord, I thank you for Bill and Alice and the other members of the praise team that work with them, for their dedication. I thank you for those who would come in and work for special music. Lord, I ask that you would bless us all, that we would do it well before you. Lord, for those who would do the other work of the church, Lord, ask that you give them special skill and wisdom and knowledge, that they would do it and do it well. In your holy name, amen. I am your host, Frank Reich, Associate Pastor of Family and Ministry at Grace Fellowship Baptist Church, and this has been the Wednesday evening Bible study for Wednesday, May 14th, 2025. This was recorded on Mother's Day, May 11th, 2025. We had a wonderful worship service today. Oscar did a great job with the sermon. We are preparing for Vacation Bible School. Whoop! And I hope you're as excited as I am. I'm looking forward to it. Be praying for it. Be contributing money and goods and preparing your heart, asking God to prepare the hearts of all the workers, asking God to prepare the hearts of all the children that will come, that He will draw many, and that God will prepare the hearts of the parents that bring the children, that we will be prepared for Vacation Bible School. I hope to see you Wednesday at the Bible study. If not, I hope to see you Sunday at worship. And if nothing else, I'll see you here on YouTube. Have a blessed week.